Hi, this is Bravo 21. I'm a glider pilot and a sim developer, and yesterday Madolo and I uploaded the JS3 18-meter glider to flightsim.to. The link will be in the text below. So it's gone into the community folder, aircraft selection screen in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Pick JS. Here's the JS3 18. So we'll pick the 18-meter version. There's a selection of some liveries, not as many as we're going to end up with eventually, I'm pretty sure. The tail number, mainly on these planes, is automatically added from your ATC ID that you set in settings. I'll show you. If you come down here to customization, you can put your tail number in there. Launch method, we get to choose, do you want an aero tow, do you want a winch? Let's say we picked aero tow here. And I'll just launch at Fusen, which is where that flight is from. So let's load. I've already put it in the right directory here. I got lost in the Alps. There you go. 254 kilometer flight for the multiplayer this weekend. Flight conditions, that's already loaded. We pick a standard date and time so that we're all flying in the same weather, basically. Which for this one we've chosen noon. You can scroll the scroll wheel here. A little trick. July the 1st, 2023, noon, and we start at the same time. Runway 08, launch into the sim. I shall skip this bit in the video. So here we are on the JS3. If you're used to the AS33, this will feel somewhat familiar. The performance is similar to the AS33, also as they are in real life. They're both 18-meter racing gliders, flapped. Slightly different set of flaps, different wing loading, considerably higher wing loading in the JS3. So as with the AS33, there's a lot of keybinds mapping to things that are going on the screen. You don't need them, you can click on anything. But bottom left, here's the power button. All these switches to power these things on and off independently. If we look down here, they do individually work. You need the main power on first, but as a convenience, actually, if you click this one or do the keybind, which I'll do, I won't click on it. There's the keybind. It's assumed that really, if you turn one on, you'll typically want most of them kind of turned on, so it takes care of that for you. Just return to the default view, and differences between the AS33 and the JS3, if you're already familiar with the other glider. This is a dedicated horizon, which means we don't need the space on the nav panel to be rendering that. There's a bit of extra information provided on the nav panel, some additional functionality. Somebody mentioned they'd quite like a scale on the map. As you change the map scale, there's a little scale bar down here that tells you, yeah, I know I'm doing this small enough so that we can render it in a YouTube video without it being too big, but yeah, that scale 16 kilometers. Just like the AS33, you can change your map, and you tend to choose the best map for wherever you're flying. This first choice, Stamen terrain, Stamen maps, is always a pretty good choice. New information here, which is time to go, which is in addition to these numbers update. When you've got a task loaded, it says how long have you spent on task so far, and what has your aggregate task speed been, which is more complicated than it sounds. It's your speed. If you say you've shot off, say here's your task and you've shot off here, you're going off track, then the calculation of how fast you're going is not the absolute speed from point to point there. It's actually the distance you've actually achieved is the total distance of this leg minus the distance you've still got to go. So if you're over here, you imagine drawing an arc back here. Effectively, the distance you've covered is from there to there, and that's what's used to calculate your speed, because that's what's going to matter when you get at the far end. Okay, minor detail there, you probably didn't need to know. This is displaying sim time, which is not a bad thing to know. Okay, so we've got, if we look outside, go to default view and then do it. We've got Jimmy holding the wing. We're going to do the sort of standard thing of rocking the rudder to tell the tow plane to start towing. Jimmy has seen that, he's signaling the tow pilot, and off we go. I'm just checking the spoilers, which I should have done before. I should have done a whole load of checks before, but hey, let's get on with it. You can just notice on the sides here, this is a custom modelled glider airport, standard in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So good old DeSoto. You know, they've added a whole load of gliding scenery just for us soaring pilots, really. So we are flying out of here later this afternoon in the SSC Saturday soaring task, multiplayer soaring task. We have up to 40 players doing that on a weekend. It's kind of good fun with plenty of chat on voice comms. You can see my flap indicator, bottom left of the panel, has gone red. It's giving us a warning, and it's up to you to work out what the warning is. And generally, it'll be, you know, there's something in the configuration wrong, and it's that our wheel is down, which is if we're in the air, our wheel is down as if we're thinking of landing, which we are, by the way, because we're on tow, you never know what's going to happen. And, but it's saying, but you're carrying ballast, so, you know, that doesn't seem right. If I put the gear up, you can see in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, there's a gear warning light. It's a green saying the gear is down. I'd use the keybind to raise the gear, and the noise has got considerably less. We're flying at 90 plus knots now, so I'm still in this sort of aero tow flap setting, which isn't the most efficient for this speed, but it means if there's an almighty twang or the tow plane starts heading towards the dirt, we're kind of already in a flap that makes it easy to recover. These tow planes give you a particularly fast climb, faster than they do in real life. In reality, you have a big heavy glider. The tow plane doesn't find it easy to tow up in the air, and we wouldn't make its job harder by being in the wrong flap. Okay, we're doing 80 knots now. I'll go to flap 2, which will be a little bit better, and I'll fly a little bit better. The object you can see on top of the dash with the little green light on the back of it is a front-facing strobe. That is actually a real object. It can mount inside the cockpit, but it's sealed flush to the canopy, so there's no reflections. And it's a strobe, which is what of the four power the 4 power switches, it's what the bottom right-hand one does. Or you can use the keybind O. We'll turn that strobe on and off. So if you look at the green LED on that light, that's both strobes. There's one on the tail as well. You can see on this flight today, the wind's picked up a little bit to 5 knots, but that's not a huge amount of wind. It certainly isn't enough to get a decent ridge lift working. So the flight today which I'm not going to do now, but the flight today is a mix of thermal climbs really, and just a little bit of summer breeze ridge lift coming up on the slopes. Our airfield will be below us somewhere. You can have a look from outside. That tow plane is going to wave at us any second, I think. Definitely a picturesque part of the world. I can't see what I'm doing. Oop. I just dropped the cable. You see, we snapped the cable, all the tow plane released us. We're pretty high anyway, it didn't really matter. I don't know if you noticed that. That's the airfield down there. Ah, there you go. There's an audio Actually, we've just strolled into a thermal here without particularly thinking about it. I very much doubt it's going to be a cloud. Yep, no cloud up there. But because we've got a dedicated horizon, this freed up a little bit of UI really on the nav panel. So the thermaling indicator, which is normally the top left button, not to be confused with the green dial, but the top left button. If you click that, it'll show the thermaling indicator, but it's worth having just on the top button on your stick, because you really use it that often. And if you just click the button on that stick, in the JS3, that thermaling indicator toggles in and out, which is really quite convenient. On the AS33, we're having to toggle 3 ways because we have the horizon in there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move towards where we had lift before and then turn the other way. You see those green dots? That's saying whatever we were climbing then. Lift in Microsoft Flight Simulator is a bit of a crapshoot at the moment. If we kind of have a look around, see we're nowhere near any cumulus cloud, but Microsoft is, or Sobo, have got an unusual thing of planting lift in random places where there's a cloud there or not, and then layer on top of it some other bits of lift. So it's best treating every day as if it's a blue day. Realistically, the clouds do have lift underneath them, but the lift coming randomly up from the ground is stronger than the lift under the clouds. So if you, let's refer to that as, in real gliding we'd call that a blue thermal, which would normally only happen on blue days. Yeah, whereas in Microsoft Flight Simulator it happens every day, and there's 100 times more blue thermals than there is cloud thermals, and the blue thermals are stronger. So what were they thinking? Did they not ask a single glider pilot what does the air actually do before they just came up with this code? You know, we're gradually trying to get that tweaked, and basically, if Asobo's listening, dial down the random ground lift. Like everywhere I'm flying here, there's random lift, right? Turn it off completely would be reasonable. If you want turbulence, then just implement a layer of turbulence, which is an average value of 0, right? So you've got a bit of air going up, a bit of air going down, is the general fabric of the air. And those up and down deltas don't have to be that great. Maybe it will vary if you've got turbulence. That's what turbulence is. Turbulence isn't on average the whole air mass going up. Okay, because gliders only come down at half a knot, and you've got on average the air is going up at 2 knots over the entire world. So we spend a lot of our time flying at the maximum speed the glider can possibly fly. So can you just turn that shit off? If you can't come up with better than that, just turn it off, and then improve the strength of the clouds, because that is actually what's happening here. If you're flying in the real world, is most of the air around here is kind of going up a bit, down a bit, up a bit, down a bit, and then when you get over to a cloud like the one we can see in front of us, that one there would have a honking great thermal underneath it, and the air would be going up at 600, 700 feet a minute when you get under there. Okay, so please, Asobo. Anyway, that's about it for the JS3. It's a flapped, ballasted. I'll start dumping the ballast, which again you can put on a keybind, which is just toggle ballast, the toggle ballast valve keybind. Let's go. Let's see how fast we can get back. I've opened the ballast valves. We're going to head back to the airport and land. I'm shooting this on a relatively small window, so it's 1920 by 1080 for the YouTube video, which isn't helping. Normally I've got 3 40-inch, 34-inch. Okay, here we are on approach. Landing flap. Ballast is all gone. Gear down. 70 knots. Full spoilers actually. A little bit high I think. Got to keep the speed up. Half spoilers. Keeping the speed up. Easing the spoilers back. I should have a bit more speed here I think really. Full air brake. Got the glider down. Half air brake. Opening the air brakes again to get the wheel brake working. Park over here. I think I've just crossed. I wouldn't normally cross. See that path I just went over? That's a bit risky to do in a real airfield because the edges of those paths sometimes have, I don't know, trenches along the side or ditches or whatever. You don't want to do that. Okay, so there you go. There's the Yonker JS3 18 meter.